Mi, fa, sol, mi, re, mi, do, re. I'm Chris Murphy with 3 years of seminary experience where I learned the chant, and then sometime in Minnesota as well, working with the choir as the second string choir director. I did manage to pick up the chant theory rather well at the seminary. I cannot sight read, so occasionally I'll have to ask someone else to sing something for me. But I do know the theory, and I can teach you the theory. This class will mostly be just an overview, so you have some knowledge as to what the square notes mean, and not an in-depth course. That being said, chant is often seen as free-flowing, not much structure. It's often seen as difficult to understand, especially for those who have been educated with modern notation. Gregorian chant, the notation itself obviously predates modern notation, and the melodies themselves a lot of the melodies predate Christ. Some of our chant melodies come from the Jews, from the Jewish temple traditions. In fact, there's a story of a rabbi in Rome who was listening to the boys' choir in Rome sing an Alleluia. And after that was finished, he turns to the cardinal who was escorting him and says, "We sing the same exact thing. Same exact melody. Different words, obviously, in the Hebrew language, but the same exact melody." So the chant melodies have a lot of history behind them. Chant is referred to as Gregorian chant, but that's mostly because Pope Gregory the Great codified the chant, pulled things together, pulled melodies together, and set up a structure, an organized system. And it wasn't until much later that we actually have the square note notation. Most of the time, actually all the time, chant was learned by memorization. Until someone started writing notes, and then the notes would normally be written like this. And the words written under here. Okay. Where does this note start? What exactly is this interval? You really didn't know. It was mostly a sight guide to trigger someone's memory. Oh, I'm supposed to go up here. Oh yeah, that's right. Now I remember. It wasn't anything that precise. Let me grab this book here. Let me get the date here. Excuse me. And somewhere around the year 1000, a Benedictine monk Guido d'Orazio, circa 1000, was teaching a hymn to St. John to a boys' choir. And he noticed that the first note of each phrase was one tone step higher. So that gave him the names for the notes. Pat is copying a packet And so you'll actually get a copy of that hymn. The first phrase, ut queat laxis, the first syllable, ut. This marker's running out of gas here. Ut. The second phrase was resonat fibris. The first syllable of that phrase was re. Third phrase, mira gestorum, first syllable, me. Famuli tuorum, first syllable. Solve polluti. And then labii reatum. And thus we have the beginning of the note names for our scale. At some point later on, ut was removed. It would have to have been after the year 1600. And I know that because in Shakespeare's play, Love's Labour's Lost, there is a very pedantic character who at one point sings the scale, and he uses ut as the first note. So Shakespeare was the end of the 1500s and beginning of the 1600s. So sometime after the 1600s, ut was removed and replaced by do, which is the first syllable of Domini, for our Lord. T, the last note name, comes from the last two words of the hymn to St. John here. It doesn't start on a T. The last word, Sancta Ioannis. And at the time, in the year 1000, there were no J's in Latin. Every J was written with an I. So it was originally referred to as S-I, but was later changed to T. Just for ease of singing, just to get rid. And thus, we have the scale. Now, based on that, Guido d'Arezzo said, okay, well, I've got these note names. I can use this to teach. And it started him thinking, well, if each note is higher, why don't I try to write some sort of gauge so that anyone could know what they are. And he came up with the 4-line staff that we use in Gregorian chant, where each line and space represents one tonal step up. All right. When we get those papers, I will show you that hymn. Okay. So, but until then, I will just move on. One of the major differences between modern notation and Gregorian chant is the number of lines per staff. Gregorian has 4 lines. Modern notation increased the number of lines to 5 because instruments have a wider range of play than the human voice. The human voice does not need more than 4 lines and then maybe a note, an extra line that's a little added up top, but generally the human voice does not need more than 4 lines. We don't have that vocal range. So occasionally there'll be a ledger line above or below in case a note creeps a bit high or a bit low, but